back to the book, Vitamin D Cures Everything. It's one of my favorite topics, okay. And I sent you this study just to look at before this conversation, vitamin D and cancer. It seems to be a perennial topic for journals, if ever there was one, vitamin D and cancer. I could almost attribute that probably to one person, but I won't. So this study was the effect of, I'll name it, the effect of vitamin D supplements on relapse or death in a P53 immunoreactive subgroup of digestive tract cancer. Very specific there, okay. But the study was an analysis of a previous study that actually didn't show results. So they went back and looked at this study, and they subgrouped it, and then they had to subgroup the subgroup, and then they got positive results. So to me, you know, even without getting into specifics, perhaps you can answer this question. I mean, when you subgroup a subgroup and you find an association, it just sounds like if you look hard enough, you'll find something. I don't know if that's fair or not. You say so.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is exactly the issue of multiple hypothesis testing, whereas you do enough analyses, also called p-hacking, also called salami slicing. There's many different names for it. But it's basically that. It's like you do enough analyses until you find something you like, and that's what you publish. And that is problematic because, you know, every analysis looks good if you ignore the 19 negative ones that came before. So if you don't start out with a question, what's really fascinating is that when you ask the general public, like, how do you think research happens? And they're like, well, researchers start with a question and then they publish the results regardless of what the answer was. And the answer is no. Like, you have to convince a journal to publish your results. And sometimes they will tell you, no, it's boring. So there's this incentive to have new findings that are interesting. So if you do a study where vitamin D does nothing, people are going to be like, yeah, who cares? Whereas if you do a study that shows that vitamin D can help treat cancer, like, oh, this is interesting, people are going to talk about it, people are going to order reprints, now we'll publish it in our journal. And so there's an incentive to publish positive research, which is a problem because it means that a lot of negative research is going unpublished because nobody finds it interesting. And
But wait, before you go on though, I
yeah.
mentioned this specific study and a general concept. So could you just clarify if you're speaking generally or if you're talking about this study?
Oh, well, both to a certain
Oh,
extent.
okay, good. I just wanted to,
I,
don't want
yeah,
anybody to tell me that, okay, go ahead.
yeah, both to a certain extent. I mean, here, it's the issue is that it's not wrong to do secondary analyses, okay? It's not wrong to do exploratory analyses, but we shouldn't see them as causative. If you want to prove that vitamin D treats these types of people, then do a study and design it. That's fine. But the problem is that when you do a study, when you power a study, it's designed to do one analysis. If you do 20 analyses off of that same data set, just by random chance, you are probably going to get a positive result. And that's actually the moral of the first chapter of the book, which is about vitamin C, not vitamin D. But that's the point, is that you can find the positive result if you do enough analyses. And that issue of multiple hypothesis testing can lead us astray, because if you don't power your studies properly for all the questions you want to answer, you're going to get underpowered studies, and you might get, you know, results that are wrong just by random chance, not because you did anything wrong, not because you cheated, not because you faked the data. It's just random. Sometimes you get aberrant findings. It's the example that I like to use when I speak to journalists is, you know, have you ever seen a political poll that was just like out to lunch, that was just like completely wrong? Yeah, it happens sometimes. In the same way that a political poll can just be completely wrong because you just had a random selection of people that did not reflect the general population, sometimes the statistical analysis can just be wrong because you just caught a selection of data that was not representative of the whole.
I was left wondering, I wonder how many subgroups they did do and if this was the one they reported. I mean, there's no way to know, but
There's no way to know.
they did, in this study, they did one subgroup and they found no difference versus placebo. But then when they subgrouped again and adjusted for age and history of cardiovascular disease, they found an association. But then is the association between 5-year relapse and age and cardiovascular disease? Or is it between vitamin D? I mean, so how would you, anyway, subgrouping a subgroup, that's how I kind of thought of this one.
Yeah, it's problematic, but it's common, and that's unfortunate.